go.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Potter, and I'm a YSC Legacy Lead, or RISE advocate, and I'm here with Dr. Ann Partridge. She's going to tell us about her talk today that is really important for young survivors.
Hi, I'm Ann Partridge. I'm a medical oncologist at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, and I'm here at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, where I'm going to be discussing for our medical oncologists, surgical oncologists, breast oncologists, advocates, and others why we need to pay attention to what I call managing the aftermath, which is essentially how women feel after we have to treat them appropriately and well-intentioned with hormonal therapies or deprivation of hormones, because that helps the breast cancer outcomes, and therefore that should help them, but at the same time lots of long-term late effects and short-term quality of life issues can arise. So I'm going to basically run through a lot of issues that arise from the hormone symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats and bad sleep and vaginal dryness and lack of libido, and talk about remedies for that. And then I'm also going to talk about kind of the long-term late effect concerns and how we can kind of shore ourselves up to prevent long-term things. And when I refer to that, I mean things like risk to your heart, your bones, or your head from estrogen deprivation in a young person in particular.
So I just have a quick question for you. As an advocate, and we're thinking, I'm a 10 and 11-year survivor now. One thing I've been concerned about is like heart long-term and bones long-term. Is the oncology community working with those doctors?
Oh, you mean with
outside
the
of
specialists, the endocrinologists, the brain doctors, the neurologists, and the heart doctors? Absolutely. So in fact, my other hat is I run the adult survivorship program at the Dana-Farber, and in that capacity I actually have a large group of subspecialists who focus on the cancer-related after effects and treatment-related effects to their organs, such as endocrine things, heart things, kidney things, and stuff like that.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to more great talks here in San Antonio.
Andrea from San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, and we're talking today about the new technology that's coming online for cold caps and the possibility that you can keep your hair or most of your hair now during chemotherapy. So we are here with Lizzie Crown from Digitana, who's going to talk to us about the technology involved.
Okay, so we are here. We're going to cap Miss Diane. We've determined that she is a green cap. The Dignitan machine comes with 4 different size caps that are fitted by the nurse or by the treatment center for the patient. So we make sure that we get the right size. This is what we call the inner cap. It's silicone. It's got the channels that circulate the cold fluid during the chemo infusion that will help keep your hair. Once we get that on and fitted, there's an outer cap that snaps on as well. It will really cinch the cap tight on her head. They also have a chin strap. We don't have one on our samples. We've got BOA technology to cinch the cap tight on her head. And now she will sit with her cold cap on during her chemo treatment. Depending on your regimen, the times that you're going to wear the cap and how long you keep the cap on will vary. Usually it starts when they're going to start your pre-meds about 30 minutes before your infusion starts, and you will wear the cap for anywhere up to an hour to 2 or 3 hours post-infusion. This machine is called the DigniCap. It can treat 2 patients at a time, and you just sit back and relax and chill, literally.
Advocacy at Young Survival Coalition. We are here at the first poster session at San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, and we wanted to present you some results of an interesting poster here that looks at the treatment of brain metastases. And I am here with Muriel Sada, and she's going to give you a summary of some of the high-level findings of her poster.
Hi, I'm Muriel Sidak. I'm a medical director at Cascadian Therapeutics. We have been studying a drug now called tucatinib. You may have seen it in previous studies, identified as ONT-380. We have 3 posters here at San Antonio this year that will include not only this poster here, which is a study that has been done at Dana-Farber looking at different dosing regimens, whether to take it twice a day or once a day. And the exciting thing about this drug in combination with trastuzumab here is that we have the opportunity to include patients with brain metastases and actually see some very good prolonged stable disease in this particular trial. In addition, we have a pivotal trial that is now enrolling patients called HER2-FLINE, and you may see that in coming months. It is open and enrolling in North America and will be outside of North America and the rest of the world beginning in early 2017. We're very excited that this drug not only gives systemic control of metastatic disease, but also for those who have CNS metastases, we have seen responses in the brain in addition to the rest of the body. It's an oral agent that we're able to combine fairly well with other agents. It's still an investigational product, and we look forward to being able to talk about further data later this week.
Thank you so much.
The Rise Advocate down in San Antonio. Today I'm here with Thomas Carter with Vision RT, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about if you have a left side breast cancer, ways that you can avoid potential heart damage if you're going to need radiation therapy.
Thank you. So we all know that radiation therapy can be a really important part of treatment for left breast cancer. But there is, of course, a downside to this because the left breast is very close to the heart, and damage can occur to the heart from radiation hitting the heart. If you have a look at this diagram here, you can see what often happens with patients who have left breast cancer. The radiation fields that you can see in these colours here actually overlap and partly hit the heart, and that obviously can cause problems later on in life. So we're here to raise awareness of this challenge and also of one of the potential solutions, which is something called deep inspiration breath hold. So in this technique, the patient takes a deep breath in and the heart moves down and away from the breast, and as you can see here, that means that the radiation is much further away from the heart. There's less radiation which hits the heart. So that's really good news. So if you have left breast cancer, it's really important to ask your radiation oncologist what steps they're taking to reduce heart dose of that radiation, and also how they're going to ensure that when you do take that breath in, if they're going to do deep inspiration breath hold, how they're going to ensure that every time you take that breath hold, you're in the right position so the radiation is always going to the intended spots.
Hi, I'm Tracy LeDuc here from Young Survival Coalition.
I'm Anne-Marie Potter, also from the Young Survival Coalition, and we're at San Antonio on the second day. We're here to talk about the POSH study, which I don't remember the whole name.
Oh, I don't remember the whole name, but it was looking at outcomes of young breast cancer patients, and it was looking at it specifically in terms of BRCA status. But what was really cool about it is it was a prospective study. So they started this back in 2000, and they were able to follow the patients during treatment and all the way through, as opposed to just going back and looking at data after everything had already happened. So they could kind of follow along in real time. And they were looking at every patient in the study was diagnosed at under age 40. They took blood samples and they took DNA samples. They tested the DNA samples, but what was kind of interesting is they didn't tell the patients their BRCA status at that point. What they did was offer them the option when they entered the trial to go to a genetic counselor. So about 50% of the patients chose to go to a genetic counselor and learned their BRCA status, but the other 50% didn't learn it and in fact don't even know it now.
So what was pretty cool about this trial was it included 2,857 women, which is a really nice sample size. 19% of the women were triple negative in the study, and they did a comparison of triple negative, those with BRCA mutations and those without. And they actually showed that individuals, women with the BRCA gene, had a better survival rate. So that's, I guess, good news if you're BRCA positive, because typically women with BRCA positive don't feel like the cards are really stacked against them, and this data is showing that actually it wasn't.
They also looked at overall survival between the patients who were BRCA positive and not BRCA positive, regardless of whether they were triple negative, and found out that they had similar overall survivals. And then they compared the BRCA1 patients to the BRCA2 patients, and also found that the overall survival for those patients was approximately the same. The curves were very similar. So really it was that her conclusion was there was no difference in overall survival, with the exception of triple negative non-BRCA patients. And they did have a statistically significant worse outcome.
So one interesting question that came out of the audience was about oophorectomies, because a lot of women with BRCA positive choose to do oophorectomy, and whether this was included in their analysis. They reported that only a small number of women had oophorectomies, and out of over 2,000, almost 3,000 patients, there were 3 in the BRCA group who passed away from ovarian cancer. So I think that also gives us, some qualitative information, nothing statistical, but just some information to consider.
Coalition from the floor of San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, and we are talking to Dr. Nangia from Baylor College of Medicine, and she's going to talk to us a little bit more about cold caps and the new study that's come out and the technology involved and what the clinical results are.
Yeah, so we get a lot of questions about cold caps and what the data is out there. So here in San Antonio, we presented the first randomized prospective study of scalp cooling in the world. And we had planned to have 235 participants using all types of chemotherapy. And we had one interim analysis planned and planned to stop early if that interim analysis was positive, and it was, and that's where we are today. So in our study, we had 95 women that received scalp cooling and 47 that did not, and were on the control group. And what we showed was that in the women who had scalp cooling, 50% of them retained their hair, and in the control group, 0% did. Now, there's variations. The fit of the cap is key. So the way these machines work is you have this inner cap and this outer cap, and there are 5 different sizes, so each patient is sized. And if it doesn't fit right and there's not pressure throughout the scalp, you'll have kind of patches where you lose your hair. And it's a mini refrigeration unit that circulates a coolant to keep it cold. So before this, what was commonly used in the U.S. were the penguin cold caps. And those are very labor intensive. You have to use them every 30 minutes, and they have variations in temperature because they're like ice packs. You put it on and it's cold and it thaws out, and you have to refit that every 30 minutes. So the idea is that these devices are a little bit more comfortable because you can just fit them once and wear them throughout treatment, and they don't have that variation in temperature. So the other thing to keep in mind is, although half the women kept their hair, there's some chemotherapy regimens where these devices work better and some where they don't work as well, so the hair rate retention can be variable. So not everyone is going to have successful hair retention, but at least it gives someone a chance at keeping their hair if that's something they want to do. The other thing I get asked a lot about patients is, are they safe? And from the data we have, before we did this study, that was one of our questions. And from many thousands of patients, it looks like it doesn't increase the risk of recurrence or overall survival. And we will be collecting that data from our study as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Jenna Ratcliffe. I'm at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, and I'm going to briefly describe to you our research from McMaster University Hamilton Health Sciences. So what we looked at is women under the age of 45. There 35 of them completed a supportive care needs survey, and also a 26-item survey that was designed from a previous study that looked at distress treatment options as well as some demographic information. So some of the interesting findings from this particular study is that we found that the supportive care needs of women, the number one ranking was concerns of those close to you, And that's different than women who have within a general age population. Typically, those women have high anxiety needs and fear of recurrence, but concerns of those, worries of those close to you actually rank number one among young women. And we can see that perhaps the reason why that is because 66% of our study group have young children. The other interesting finding is that the follow-up group actually had higher unmet needs than those in the active treatment group. And that could be that because women in the follow-up group actually have finished their treatment and now are concerned about what to do next. And those in active treatment perhaps didn't have as many high unmet needs because they're concerned about eradicating the cancer. The other interesting feature is that we looked at the supportive care needs of women from lumpectomy, mastectomy, and bilateral mastectomy. And that we found that women with lumpectomy actually had higher unmet need than those within the other groups. And that could be because women with lumpectomy could have higher concerns about fear of recurrence versus their surgical counterparts. So, in conclusion, we found that young women with breast cancer largely have unmet supportive cancer care needs, and that referral to fertility specialists and supportive care workers could improve current practice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rise Advocate. I'm with Diana Bodden from Biotheranostics, and she's going to tell us about a relatively new test for patients who have been on endocrine therapy.
Hey Diane, thanks so much. A little bit about BCI. Breast Cancer Index has been around for about 2.5 years, and it's a test that measures estrogen signaling and proliferation. It's performed on your original biopsy specimen or surgical excision specimen. Result comes back in about 10 days, and your physician will provide information that tells you whether or not you're likely to benefit from endocrine therapy beyond 5 years and what your risk might be in that extended setting. So it's a great test, especially pertinent given all the information that came out this week at SABCS surrounding B42, IDEAL, and the data trials, compounded by the MA17R trials, and we really ask that you go and ask your doc about it. I think it could be helpful. Thanks.
Here at the fourth poster session at San Antonio, and it's exciting today for YSC because we are presenting a poster of our own. It was an abstract we submitted and was accepted for poster presentation, and so we're really excited about that. And the poster focuses on our Shady Pink Elephant End-of-Life series that was developed by our Director of Survivorship Programs, Jean Rao. We had done a metastatic survey, or a survey of our young women with metastatic disease, and found that many of them had not done, despite their interest in it, had not taken steps for end-of-life planning, had not discussed end-of-life planning with their physicians, and even had not been told about hospice care. So based on that information, we developed this 3-part series that had talked about palliative care and how it's for really any stage of breast cancer. Also talked about the nuts and bolts of end-of-life planning, and we talked about how to have a tough discussion and bring it up with your family. It's talk about death over dinner. It's actually a program that's developed by a gentleman who spoke for us about how to have those tough discussions. And you can see over here we have a couple charts. We did this live streamed on the internet, and we also recorded it on YouTube. And what we found is that most people have watched it on YouTube, and the most popular part of the series so far is the one on palliative care. And this just again shows the statistics that despite the importance of these topics, 86% had not sought information on hospice, 88% had not discussed it with their providers, and 39% had not prepared any end-of-life legal documents. These 3-part series still lives on YSC's YouTube channel, so anybody can go at any time and view them from the safety and security of their own home.
These things can be identified from the blood of women who are in these categories, and what we see is that in women who have postpartum breast cancer, there are some unique proteins that can be found in these extracellular vesicles, and those proteins can be associated with why these cancers behave more aggressively. If you take the EVs, the extracellular vesicles, from a woman with young women's breast cancer and put it on top of a cell line that in and of itself does not behave aggressively in terms of its ability to migrate or invade, and compare it to women who have not had breast cancer, you can see that these things will make that breast cancer behave more aggressively. And also, it turns out that the cells of the immune system, these things called myeloid cells or macrophages that are supposed to present antigens to T cells and make those T cells turn on, these things actually eat these extracellular vesicles, and when they do that, their ability to make a T cell stimulate and turn around and attack the cancer cell is reduced. So we've come up on something that we can find in young women's blood that is contributing to how aggressively their cancers behave, why their immune system might be impacted by that cancer, and are starting to identify some of the unique proteins in these things that then we might be able to turn around and target and to develop a whole line of therapy that might help in the setting of young women's breast cancer and also postpartum breast cancer. So thanks, guys.
I'm here at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium with our first poster night, and we are here with
Chloa Defoe. So I'm a resident from McGill University in Montreal, Canada.
And she's going to tell us about her poster that is comparing MammaPrint and Oncotype DX testing.
Yeah. So basically, as we know, in terms of early breast cancer, usually what we were using in the past is basically standard risk assessment tools such as tumor size and grade, age of the patient, etc. And now in the last decade, with the molecular heterogeneity of breast cancer, we found out that genomic assays could also be useful in helping us taking decisions in terms of adjuvant chemotherapy for these patients. So what we did is basically wanted to compare the risk stratification results for MammaPrint versus Oncotype DX, which are both genomic assays that we use regularly in our clinical practice in Montreal, and also to determine if they have independent, basically if they give us independent results compared to histological grades. So if we look here, basically, when comparing the risk assessments from ODX compared to MammaPrint, we see that there is a significant difference between their risk stratification. So here we have the ODX high-risk recurrence. There are still a significant proportion of the patients that are qualified as low risks as per MammaPrint. And if we look here, in terms of the ODX low recurrence score, we see that there is a significant subset of patients that are classified as high risk with MammaPrint. And basically, it's the same concept here. So there's a classification of patients qualified as intermediate with the Oncotype DX. And we see that 48% of these patients are classified as high risk with MammaPrint and 52% are classified as low risks per MammaPrint. And we also compared those results of the Oncotype DX and MammaPrint with the histological grades. So what we see here basically is, so there is good concordance between histological grade and risks, the results from the Oncotype DX and MammaPrint. But as the histological grade increases, there's more discordance between all of these results. We also compared for fun the relation between these genomic assays and adjuvant online, and also with the recurrence score of pathology clinical, which shows some discordant results as well, but that wasn't the main objective of our study. So basically, our conclusion is that although MammaPrint and ODX are both genomic assays that have the same goal of determining risk stratifications for patients with early-stage breast cancer, they differ substantially in terms of risk stratifications as per our study shows. And our results also show that there is a close correlation between histological grade and MammaPrint and ODX results, which is something interesting. And basically what all of this shows is that we're not convinced at this point that we should be using Oncotype DX and MammaPrint in all of our patients who are coming in with early stage breast cancer, just because we don't have enough studies at this point showing their impact, their impact on the clinical basis, and also they're associated with significant costs. And I'm from Canada, our healthcare resources are pretty limited in terms of finance, and we don't think that patients benefit from having all of these tests done, considering that we can be using these amounts of money for other things. So basically, I think that we should be waiting for further studies to determine how useful these tests are, and once we have a confirmation, then we can start using them more often. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
If you could just YSC or something like that.
Vogel, New York.
Wait.
Go ahead, go.
Vogel, New York. The Young Survivor Coalition.
That's it.